My older sister Olivia and both of our fiancés were reborn. My fiancé Ethan treated Olivia like she was an untouchable goddess. Olivia, however, despised her own fiancé Ryan, considering him a dull control freak. Both of them longed to escape their original engagements. After being reborn, they quickly got together and conspired to create a scandal big enough to shake the entire city. Olivia got her wish and married Ethan, while I ended up marrying Ryan. What Olivia didn't realize was that Ethan was arrogant and impulsive. If I hadn't constantly fixed his code and drawn up his project plans, he wouldn't have been able to secure even the smallest investment. And Ethan never knew that Olivia, blinded by vanity, once leaked business secrets that nearly caused Ryan's company to fall victim to a hostile takeover, almost snapping its cash flow. Now that we were all reborn, everyone had returned to their places. But immediately afterward, Olivia refused her arranged marriage. She ran to our parents sobbing, "I won't marry Ryan. I want to marry Ethan." When she fell to her knees, begging them to let her be with him, Ethan suddenly blurted, "Ryan's company will be investigated and eventually go bankrupt and be liquidated." His words sent a chill through me. He had been reborn too. "Olivia, stop this nonsense," Mom said, her brows furrowed as she reached out to help her up. "I'm not making a scene. I will marry Ethan," Olivia cried. "But the invitations for your engagement party are already sent," Dad reminded her. "It's next week. Everyone knows. If you go back on it now, what happens to the Sue family's reputation?" "Olivia," Mom tried to persuade her, "Ryan from Shengchen Group is young and accomplished. He manages a massive business empire, the kind of connection countless families would dream of. Why would you break the engagement to choose Ethan?" Her eyes, cold as ice, swept over me, her tone sharp and scornful. "Ethan may have some talent, but his studio has only just started. He has no money, no background. How could he ever compare with Shengchen Group? You've been spoiled since childhood. If you go with him, you'll suffer." "I don't care," Olivia sobbed hysterically. "I'll only marry Ethan. I will never marry Ryan." "Why?" Dad pressed. In her desperation, Olivia blurted out, "Because Ryan's company will be investigated, and in the end it'll go bankrupt and be liquidated. I remember last time it was that new energy project he invested in that led to the company being maliciously shorted. The stock price crashed, and in the end he lost everything." "What?" My parents gasped, stunned. When they questioned her further, Olivia fell silent and only muttered that Ryan was paranoid and stubborn, bound to offend people in the business world and eventually bring ruin on himself. Meanwhile, she claimed Ethan's projects would definitely take off and make him the new rising star in tech. Hearing her say this confirmed my suspicion. Olivia, like me, had been reborn. But her timing was terrible. Both families had already signed the cooperation agreement. The engagement banquet was fully arranged, and the whole city knew the Sue family was allying with Shengchen Group. At this stage, even if Olivia cried and begged, our parents would not agree. That night, Mom barged into my room and threw a Hermes bag at my feet, her voice cold as ice. "Was this you again, scheming behind everyone's back to harm your sister? Susan, I'm warning you, whatever tricks you try, don't even think about destroying your sister's marriage." She thought I was the one stirring up trouble again, unhappy about being engaged to poor, penniless Ethan, and scheming to steal Olivia's powerful marriage by pushing her to throw a fit and demand a swap. I said softly, "Mom, this has nothing to do with me. The truth is, Olivia has been the one scheming all along. She had been spoiled into cruelty, selfish and domineering, believing that all the best things in the world should belong to her. And with our mother's favoritism, she became even more convinced that it was her right. When people found out the Sue family had 2 daughters, they would always prepare 2 gifts. But Olivia could never stand it. She would insist on snatching my share for herself, and even after taking it, she would turn around and accuse me of being the one who stole from her. Mother always believed her. In her eyes, I was scheming, cold by nature, and endlessly jealous of my sister. I grew tired of explaining myself. Mother clearly didn't believe me anyway. She scolded me harshly, warning me to behave, marry quietly, and stop being an eyesore to her. Then she stormed out of my room in a rage. I sat at the table and let out a long, heavy sigh. Olivia and I were only a year apart. Not long after giving birth to her, Mother became pregnant with me. The doctor said it was too soon, that there would be risks, but when they learned I was a boy, they decided to keep the baby anyway. In the end, when I was born, Mother suffered massive bleeding and nearly died. And after all that, I was another girl. And worse, she could never have children again. The dream of having a son in this prestigious family was gone forever. All of their resentment fell on me. In their eyes, I was a cursed child, the jinx who had ruined everything. From then on, the scale in their hearts tilted completely toward Olivia. They believed I was born to bring them misfortune. The two daughters of the Sue family lived opposite lives. Olivia was spoiled like a princess, while I was treated like a forgotten orphan, shoved into the corner. Mother never liked me. Father only cared about business interests. In the Sue household, I lived like I was invisible. Every time rumors surfaced that father had an illegitimate son outside, Mother would be driven mad with jealousy. She would then unleash all of her anger on me, blaming me for being the reason she couldn't give him a son to secure her position. All the love she had was poured into Olivia. She indulged her in everything while crushing me down at every turn. Her words were sharp, humiliating, and constant. At every society banquet, she would take Olivia with her. Never me. She would rather bring distant cousins who barely had a connection to us than be seen with me. Over time, everyone in our circle knew of the dazzling eldest daughter, Olivia Sue, but no one even remembered there was also a second daughter, named Susan Sue. Thankfully, my private tutor, Mr. Zhang, was a truly learned man. Under his guidance, I was admitted into a top university's computer science department. "Miss Susan, you're so talented," he once told me. "If only your parents gave you half the resources they gave Miss Olivia, your accomplishments would never fall short of hers." I laughed it off. What use is all that empty reputation? You need status to have choices. Look at Olivia. She's engaged to Ryan, the head of Shengtian Group. And me? I'm being matched with penniless Ethan. I said it lightly, but I knew the truth. Years ago, my grandfather had promised to help Ethan's family. Ethan came to our house with a token of that promise, asking for marriage. Between my sister and me, only we two were suitable in age, but how could they let their pampered princess be married off to lift someone else out of poverty? Of course, that role fell to me. Mr. Zhang only sighed. Not long after, Olivia became engaged to Ryan, the powerful president of Shengtian Group, while I was engaged to Ethan, a struggling programmer. It was only after marriage that I learned the girl Ethan held in his heart had always been my sister. The token he brought that day, he had wanted to use it to ask for Olivia's hand, the celebrated beauty of high society, admired wherever she went. "You two are sisters," he once said, drunk on our wedding night. "How can your personalities be so different? You're beautiful too, but compared to Olivia, you lack her spirit." He was drunk, rambling, spilling his regrets, but every word cut through me. My heart went cold halfway, though I forced myself to remain calm. That night I realized my marriage to Ethan was never my blessing. From then on, I no longer hoped for love. Instead, I threw myself completely into his studio. I helped him refine his code, build connections, secure investments, so he could focus entirely on the technology. I didn't do it for him. I did it for our shared interest. I had married him. Our fates and our careers were bound together. I once believed that if I worked hard enough, I could eventually warm his heart. Whenever Ethan hit a technical bottleneck, he would suffer from headaches and insomnia. I searched everywhere for methods to relieve his stress, even looking up psychological counseling techniques. When his pressure eased, I even studied nutrition to take care of his health. Whenever he needed the latest technical materials, I would do everything I could to ask people abroad to send them to Ethan. Every time he wanted to give up, I was the one standing by his side, pushing him forward, acting even more like the boss than he did. His business partners all supported me, but Ethan resented me for it. Later, when his company finally went public, he basked in endless glory. Success went to his head. At a summit, he clashed with a powerful investor. I was the one who found out that investor's daughter happened to be applying for a recommendation letter from my alma mater. I used my connections to build the bridge, saving Ethan from disaster. But as the CEO of his own company, Ethan grew arrogant. I worried he would get into trouble, so I often reminded him to be cautious about risks. He found me unbearably annoying, Yet whenever the market proved me right, he had no choice but to follow my strategies. Deep down, he couldn't stand it. He felt humiliated that a woman like me was always one step ahead of him. And the more capable I appeared, the more he despised me. The shadow of my sister Olivia became his eternal white moonlight, the woman he longed for but could never touch. Once his company stabilized, he began keeping several actresses who resembled Olivia, and gradually, he stopped coming home. I didn't mind. As long as I made no mistakes, I would always remain Mrs. Ethan, holding half of the company's shares in my hands. Later, when Shangqin Group was targeted, maliciously shorted, and its stock price collapsed, Ethan immediately ran back to the woman he had always dreamed of, Olivia. She quickly betrayed Ryan, and the two of them indulged themselves on private yachts night after night. When Ryan found out, he couldn't take it. He confronted them and even messaged me, demanding that I rein in Ethan. That day, Ethan and Olivia met secretly again at a suburban villa. Ryan and I went together to confront them. Their scandal was exposed. In the chaos, Ethan, humiliated and enraged, drove his car straight at Ryan. I rushed to pull Ryan away, but then Ethan turned the car toward me. The vehicle spun out of control and crashed into the villa's gas line. It was the middle of the night. A single spark, and the whole house exploded. They could have escaped, but they were too afraid of being seen and recognized outside. They stayed in the car, arguing about how to cover things up and handle the scene. That hesitation cost them the best chance to survive. When the explosion erupted, all four of us were buried in the flames. After being reborn, Olivia knew she was about to be engaged to Ryan. She immediately began making a scene, demanding a switch. Naturally, I was eager for it, but time was too tight, and our parents refused. What should I do? After thinking for a moment, I sent a message to my assistant. Maya, find an excuse to go to Ethan's studio. Tell him to come see me. As long as he steps into the Sue household, Olivia will seize the chance. The very next day, my assistant Maya found a reason to visit Ethan's studio. Soon enough, Ethan drove over in his second-hand car. The moment I saw him, I understood. He was very likely reborn as well. His eyes carried no trace of awe toward the Sue family, nor the nervousness of facing the upper class. His stride was steady, his every move carrying the composure of someone already in power. What is it, Susan? His tone was cold and condescending, his attitude distant. In our past life, before the engagement, he had already been displeased with me, but he didn't dare show it and was always respectful. When we had just married, even if he was unhappy, he played the role of a loving husband on the surface. It wasn't until his company went public that he began to order me around. Back then, he used to call me affectionately by my nickname, but once our conflicts escalated, his words turned cold, calling me Susan with indifference. That was the moment I became certain Ethan had been reborn too. I told Ethan I came across a project in Taiwan. There are some parts I don't quite understand, and I'd like to discuss them with you. I pretended to be shy as I handed him my tablet. He forced himself to be patient, humoring me with a few words. Not long after, I excused myself to the restroom and slipped into a nearby blind spot outside the reach of the surveillance cameras to watch. Earlier, I had already instructed Maya to leak the news of Ethan's visit to Olivia. As expected, Olivia soon appeared. The moment she saw him, sparks flew. "Ethan!" she cried, rushing into his arms. They embraced tightly, whispering words of longing as if the rest of the world no longer existed. Their reunion quickly turned into confessions, and soon they admitted to each other that they had both been reborn. After clinging to each other for quite some time, Olivia sighed. "Next week I'm supposed to get engaged to Ryan. What should I do?" Years of sitting in high positions had trained Ethan to be calculating. His expression hardened, and his voice dropped low. "There's only one way." "What way?" she asked anxiously. "Stir public opinion. Force the rice to be cooked into a meal," he said, his tone heavy. The two of them plotted to use the upcoming charity gala as their stage. The plan was for Olivia to fake a fall, and Ethan would rush in to catch her in a dramatic display of a hero saving a beauty. Once the photos spread, Shangtian Group would be forced to protect their reputation and call off the engagement. Hearing enough, I slipped away quietly. Time was short. The next day, the charity gala went on as planned. I sneered inwardly, though I kept my expression calm, holding Ethan's arm and pretending not to know anything. The venue was packed with socialites and countless reporters. Ethan seemed absent-minded. Out of 10 words I said, he barely answered one. I acted as if nothing was wrong, letting him lead me through the crowd until we neared the Champagne Tower. Just as they had planned, right on cue, Olivia let out a sharp cry from nearby. Her ankle twisted, and she toppled straight toward Ethan. "Careful!" he exclaimed, immediately releasing me and lunging forward to catch her firmly in his arms. This was exactly what they had arranged. The more cameras around, the better. With the entire city's media watching, Shangqian Group wouldn't be able to endure the humiliation. They would have to back out of the engagement. But Ethan hadn't expected Olivia's beauty to attract too much attention. The moment she fell, several young heirs from wealthy families rushed forward as well. "Miss Sue, are you all right?" "Olivia, let me help you up." Several pairs of hands reached toward her at once. Ethan was only a programmer. His strength was nothing compared to those rich kids who spent years in the gym. He was pushed aside almost instantly. Both he and Olivia froze in shock at the scene. I stood nearby, sneering to myself. This was typical Ethan. Clever in small ways, but too short-sighted, never able to control the bigger picture. If I hadn't repeatedly patched up his mistakes in the past, forget going public, his company would have gone under long ago. Yet he never showed gratitude, convinced that I, a woman, only restrained his so-called genius. I watched coldly as the two of them panicked. If Olivia ended up in another man's arms, Ethan's plan would collapse completely. In our past life, she seduced him and made my life miserable. In this life, I swore I wouldn't let her off easy, let her become a laughingstock. Just then, a calm and imposing figure strode over unhurriedly. Tall and broad-shouldered, his presence was commanding. With only a single glance, he made those overeager heirs freeze in place as if someone had pressed a pause button. I looked carefully and recognized him. It was Ryan, Olivia's fiancé. I bit my lip. Olivia's fate was truly blessed. She was born into endless parental favoritism, and now she was to marry a man like Ryan, a genius favored by heaven. He adored her and defended her fiercely. His parents were enlightened and never interfered in their relationship. Ethan never forgot her. Even later, when Shangtian Group fell into crisis, Ryan never once let Olivia suffer the slightest grievance. Ethan, on the other hand, openly showered her with jewelry and luxury cars, practically wishing he could hide her away in a gilded cage. If not for that tragic accident, she would have lived comfortably for the rest of her life. Even now, after being reborn, no matter how terribly Olivia raised a scandal to back out of the engagement, our parents couldn't bring themselves to punish her in the slightest. At the charity gala, the moment Ethan thought of her staged accident, Ryan stepped in just in time to help her. And me? I was nothing more than a shadow forgotten in the corner, someone no one cared about. I let out a quiet sigh and turned to leave. But at that moment, a startled cry rang out beside me. "Oh no, Mr. Ryan didn't catch him." I turned back and saw Ryan standing tall, his powerful presence silencing all the eager young heirs. Yet that gap left Ethan an opening. He wasn't stupid. He glanced coolly at Ryan, hiding a smirk, then circled around swiftly and rushed toward Olivia. She, too, leaned toward him desperately, and the two of them collided in an embrace, an emotional scene of two hearts running to each other. While Ryan seemed fully occupied dealing with the crowd of wealthy heirs, Ethan managed to sweep Olivia up into his arms. They clung tightly together, nearly weeping from relief. Olivia went so far as to let her dress strap slip deliberately from her shoulder, revealing pale skin pressed intimately against Ethan. By the time Ryan turned his head, the sight was already sealed. The other heirs had no choice but to step back with regret. Ryan adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and sighed. What a mess this has become. Olivia sobbed against Ethan's chest, and Ethan gritted his teeth before addressing Ryan. Mr. Ryan, in fact, the Sue family and the Chin family had an old agreement. It was meant to be between me and Olivia. Later, when you proposed a partnership, the Sue family had no choice. But now with this happening, why not let us be together? I arched a brow. There had indeed been ties between the Chin and Sue families, but it had never been said that Ethan and Olivia were promised. Ethan's words were slippery and cunning. Ryan let out another long sigh. If that's the case, I'll cancel my engagement with the Sue family right now. His agreement came so readily that both Ethan and Olivia were stunned. Olivia's expression even turned a bit ugly. His words made it sound as if she were unwanted trash he was eager to cast aside. Ryan added calmly, "But tell me this, what about Susan? She is Olivia's younger sister, Ethan's fiancé, and her engagement party is next week. If I step away, what happens to her?" From the back of the crowd, I froze. Ryan, was he actually worried about me? Ethan and Olivia hesitated, then Olivia broke into tears again. "My sister will understand. There's no other way. We never wanted this to happen either." Ethan followed with solemn words. "I'll explain everything clearly to the Sue family. Please believe we never intended to hurt anyone." Ryan shook his head. "So in the end, you just plan to sacrifice the second Miss Sue to fulfill your own wishes, is that it?" Ethan didn't admit it. Of course he wouldn't. He still wanted to be the moral model, to keep a good reputation. Ryan seemed to think for a moment, then clapped his hands lightly. "Fine, how about this? Ethan, you marry Olivia, and I'll marry Susan. No need to cancel the engagements, just switch them. That way, everyone wins. What do you say?" Both of them were caught off guard again, then quickly nodded with delight. "Yes, that's wonderful," Olivia exclaimed. Listening from the back, I stomped my foot in outrage. "Who wants to marry Ryan? He's my brother-in-law." Just then, Ryan lifted his head and gave me a smile. A powerful sense of familiarity washed over me and my whole body stiffened. An uncontrollable thought rose in my mind. Could it be that Ryan had also been reborn? Thinking carefully, Olivia, Ethan, and I had all come back. That night, the four of us had died together in the explosion. If Ryan had also been reborn, it wouldn't be surprising. But if that were true, why did he save Olivia? And why did he propose marrying me? My mind was in turmoil. As expected, Ryan returned to Shengtian Group, while Olivia and Ethan went back to the Sue family. According to Ethan's plan, Olivia staged her fall at the gala, and Ethan swooped in as the hero, saving the beauty. Their intimate embrace was captured in countless photos and videos that quickly spread across the internet, shooting to the top of trending searches. When my parents saw the news, they nearly fainted from rage. "Dad, Mom, just let me and Ethan get engaged. Mr. Ryan has already agreed to cancel the marriage," Olivia cried as she and Ethan knelt before them, begging for their blessing. "What? Ryan canceled the engagement?" Mother gasped and collapsed back into her chair. Father's fury erupted. He slapped Olivia hard across the face. "Shameless. You've disgraced the Sue family and even made Shengtian Group break off the engagement. Do you realize how much we'll lose on our joint projects now that this marriage is ruined?" Father always valued profit above all else. In his eyes, this alliance with Shengtian Group was our stepping stone into the upper echelons of society, the capital that would push the company to a higher level. Now, with the engagement broken, not only had he lost face, but he had also lost a powerful partner. Furious, he raised his hand to strike Ethan as well. Ethan quickly shielded Olivia. "Mr. Sue, there's no need to cancel everything. Mr. Ryan said he would marry Susan." I watched coldly. So this was what Ethan looked like when he truly loved someone. He would stand in front of them, protect them, and fight for them. In my previous life, whenever I was wronged, he only told me to handle it myself. "Is that true?" Father demanded. "It is." Olivia and Ethan both nodded quickly. Father's anger melted into joy. He pulled back his hand, sat down again, and gave Olivia a cold, measuring look. He was satisfied now. But Mother shot to her feet, rushed over, and slapped me hard across the face. "Shameless girl. This must be your doing." I never expected to be hit, and for a moment I froze, the thought of severing ties with this family burning hotter than ever. Yes, I had helped things along from the shadows, but wasn't it Olivia and Ethan who had schemed to switch partners in the first place? Clutching my cheek, I knelt on the ground. "Mom, why do you always blame me?" Her chest heaved with fury as she jabbed her finger at me. "Why else would your sister fall like that? You were there too. Wasn't it you who pushed her down to ruin her reputation?" "Yes, it must have been you. You want to steal her engagement, don't you?" She raised her hand again to strike me, but just then the butler rushed in. "Sir, madam, honored guests have arrived. Mr. Ryan is here to protect Miss Susan." The room fell silent. Everyone stiffened at the announcement. The engagement was imminent. And now, with this scandal, representatives from both Shengting Group and the Chin family had arrived to discuss matters with the Su family. As Ryan entered, his gaze immediately landed on me. Seeing me covering my face, he asked with concern, "What happened to your face?" "It's nothing," I murmured, shaking my head, though I slowly lowered my hand. The vivid red marks of 5 fingers stood out starkly on my cheek. Ryan's brows knitted together. "You were struck. Who hit you?" Father and Mother looked embarrassed. Mother stammered, "She just accidentally bumped herself." Then she barked at me, "Hurry and get up." I stood silently, but Ryan raised an eyebrow. "An accident? That looks like a clear handprint. Who are you trying to fool?" I stared at him in shock. Was he trying to stand up for me? Ryan turned back to me. "Tell me, Miss Susan, who hit you?" His eyes were bright, serious, unwavering. My heart skipped a beat. Could he really mean to defend me? After a moment's hesitation, I clenched my fists, deciding to take the gamble. I told the truth. Mother thought I pushed Olivia, that I ruined her reputation. So, she hit me. Ryan let out a cold laugh and turned toward my mother. "Mrs. Su, I've long heard you're blind to right and wrong, hopelessly biased. Tonight I see it's true. Utterly unfair, utterly partial." Mother was struck dumb. In upper-class society, reputation was everything. She could do whatever she pleased at home, but she absolutely didn't want such things exposed. And yet, recently, the internet had been full of gossip about the Su family's second daughter from Tech University. Until now, many hadn't believed it. But tonight, with Ryan's words, some of those doubts were dispelled. Ryan's lips curved faintly, though his eyes were icy. "When Miss Olivia fell tonight, I happened to be there. I saw with my own eyes. She was standing by the champagne tower, lost in her own scheming. At that moment, Susan and Ethan were several meters away, completely out of reach. How could she possibly have pushed her? So many eyes were watching, so many cameras recording. And yet, Mrs. Su, you still blamed your younger daughter. If this isn't blatant favoritism, what is?" Mother's face flushed red, then drained pale. My chest warmed slightly. I had gambled, and Ryan had really defended me. So this was what it felt like to be protected. Seeing the room fall silent, Ryan went on calmly. "When Miss Olivia stumbled, I meant to go steady her. But a whole swarm of playboys rushed in, all wanting to play the hero. If she had fallen into their arms, her reputation would have been far worse off. I stopped them before they could take advantage." Father and Mother both went pale with fright. Father glared at Olivia, his voice like thunder. "And what were you doing at the champagne tower all alone? How could you fall like that and disgrace us all?" Olivia's face turned white. She bit her lip and cast a furtive glare at Ethan, as if blaming him. He didn't dare show a reaction, but I caught the silent exchange in their eyes. Olivia had risked much tonight, and she would surely hold it against him. Mother, panicked, asked anxiously, "Olivia, no one touched you, right?" Ryan replied evenly, "No. I stopped those people before they came near. But..." He suddenly glanced sideways, his lips curving with a cold smile, his gaze landing directly on Ethan. This Mr. Ethan was very clever. While everyone else was blocked, he slipped around from afar, rushed in, and carried Miss Olivia into his arms. All eyes immediately turned to Ethan. Mother's glare could have burned holes through him, as though she wanted to tear him apart. By now, she surely understood who had truly stirred up the trouble. Ryan continued, his tone sharp, leaving no room for excuses. "Mr. Ethan has already said it himself. He and Miss Olivia were destined to be together, only forced apart because of my presence. Now, when she fell, he rushed to save her. Their bond is clearly heaven's will. Why not simply let them be?" My jaw nearly dropped. Ryan's words gave them no cover at all, painting the picture as black as it could be. Father's fists clenched tightly, his furious gaze locked on Ethan. At that moment, a man standing beside Ryan, clearly a senior figure of Shengtian Group, spoke slowly. "Miss Olivia is not worthy of our Mr. Ryan. This marriage cannot continue, but if the engagement is broken, it won't be good for either company's stock price. So why not let the second Miss Su marry him instead? We can announce publicly that she was always the one intended for the alliance." The elder's judgment was final. Father immediately agreed with relief. Yes, that would be best. Susan is far more suitable to be Mrs. Ryan." Mother tried to argue, but Father snapped at her. "Look at what you've raised. Olivia has shamed us, while Susan, under Teacher Zhang's guidance, has turned out far better." But the elder cut in with a cold sneer. "Mrs. Sue, don't mistake my courtesy for tolerance." Mother's face drained of color, her lips trembling, and in the end she had no choice but to shut her mouth in humiliation. And just like that, my marriage to Ryan was set. The Sue family's alliance with Shengting Group was preserved. Father considered Olivia a disgrace. So they promised Olivia to Ethan. Ethan's studio was short on funding, and since the Sue family was willing to invest, he naturally had no objections. After all, the bride he had wanted from the beginning was the Sue family's pampered eldest daughter, not me, the second daughter who hardly existed in anyone's eyes. And so, everyone seemed satisfied. Time was tight, but the engagement banquet went on as scheduled, only with the bride and groom swapped. Olivia got what she wanted and was overjoyed. Because I was to marry into the Ryan family, the socialites and noble ladies all rushed to flatter me, showering me with gifts. Even Mother had no choice but to bring me along to various parties where everyone sought my favor, while Olivia was neglected. Olivia might have always been the cherished one. But once a woman is married, her standing depends largely on her husband. Without a stable foundation, no one was eager to please her. She, however, couldn't see the truth of it. Unable to accept the shift, she stormed up to me in anger. "Susan, don't get cocky. Ryan's company will collapse sooner or later. You'll see him bankrupt, just wait," I answered lightly. "Oh, is that so?" With a smug tilt of her chin, Olivia declared, "Ethan will be the next Bill Gates. His company will become a new empire, and I will be the most dazzling CEO's wife. Ryan is just a paranoid, controlling tyrant. Whatever you do, he'll interfere and keep you bound hand and foot, making you miserable. He has no vision, and he'll make mistakes that drag you into ruin. You'll suffer right along with him. Just wait." I smiled faintly and nodded. "Fine, I'll wait." She snorted proudly and lifted her head high as she walked away. Before the engagement, the Sue household remained quiet. Under Father's stern hand, even Mother, though she still hated that I had stolen Olivia's marriage, had no choice but to manage the preparations for me. I kept to myself, staying low-key. Soon the day of the banquet arrived. Just before we left, Mother came into my room, her voice cold as she instructed me and my assistant. "When you get to the Ryan family, you must immediately put away the authorization documents for that trust fund under your name. Do not let anyone from their family see them. Remember that." I was puzzled, though I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't want to argue, so I just murmured a response, and Mother left. That day, Olivia and I each climbed into our bridal cars, setting off toward very different fates. On the night of the engagement, I sat anxiously in the lounge. My original plan had been to let Olivia's scandal grow until she and Ethan were ruined. Then I could either find a suitable business partner or carve my own path. But daughters of big families never controlled their own marriages. The alliance among the three families had already been sealed, and once my parents agreed, I had no choice but to follow. In my past life, I had dealt with Ryan and knew his character. I didn't oppose the marriage itself. The only strange part was that I had long been used to thinking of him as my brother-in-law. Now, suddenly, I was to become his bride. It still felt odd. I couldn't help but wonder why Ryan had chosen me. Soon, the host's enthusiastic voice rang out outside. The two ceremonies weren't scheduled at the same time. Olivia's came first. My assistant Maya slipped out to look and came back whispering, "People are saying Ethan's side is terribly stingy. The decorations are shabby, nothing like ours. The whole affair looks cheap." Guests whispered that it was because Olivia's reputation had been damaged and Ethan didn't take her seriously. But I knew better. Ethan's studio was strapped for cash. In my past life, when he married me, the betrothal gifts were pitiful, and the wedding was small and shabby. This time, he had already tried his best to give Olivia something better. Unfortunately, she would never appreciate it. Olivia always had to win, always demanded the best of everything. She even threw tantrums if someone gave me gifts but not her. Seeing such a poor display, she would surely make a scene later. After waiting for some time, thunderous applause erupted. "Second miss, Mr. Ryan has come to escort you," someone announced. Oh my, what a spectacle. Nowhere else in the entire city could match this display. Maya beamed with joy as she helped me up. I was led onto the stage in glory, and under the watchful eyes of the entire city, Ryan and I exchanged rings. At the private party following the engagement banquet, I waited for a long time until I finally heard a burst of noise outside. Ryan dismissed a rowdy group of friends who wanted to tease us with wedding pranks and then pushed the door open. My hands and feet tensed, my heart pounding wildly. He entered, dressed in a white suit, his burning gaze fixed directly on me. I stared back at him nervously. After a long pause, he said softly, "Susan, you look beautiful." My cheeks heated instantly. Flustered, I stammered out, "Brother-in-law." The moment the word left my lips, both of us froze. Shame burned through me, and I wanted to crawl into a hole. But Ryan didn't get angry. He pulled me gently to sit beside him. "On our wedding night, and you still call me brother-in-law? Change it. I'm not your brother-in-law anymore." I knew I had made a mistake. Quickly I corrected myself. "Mr. Ryan, no, husband." He patted my hand, and my face grew even hotter. After a moment's hesitation, I whispered, "Husband." "Good girl." He leaned in and kissed my cheek. His lips were hot and soft, completely unlike any woman's. I panicked and fell back onto the sofa. He followed, pressing close, his eyes blazing. I grew even more flustered. We hadn't even drunk the wedding wine yet. But then he suddenly chuckled, scooping me up into his arms. "We're already this familiar. Why are you still acting like I'm a stranger?" His words steadied me, and I blurted out the question gnawing at me. "You've been reborn too, haven't you?" He met my gaze unflinchingly. "I know you've been reborn as well." "Then why didn't you marry Olivia?" "Why marry me?" The intimacy between us shattered in an instant. Ryan sneered. "Marry her? That selfish, short-sighted, promiscuous woman? Let someone else take her." I was stunned. Ryan was always the perfect gentleman, refined in his words, never speaking harshly, especially about women. I had never heard him insult anyone like this. I voiced the doubt in my heart. "But at the gala, you saved her. I thought you loved Olivia." Ryan shook his head. "You misunderstood. In our past life, weren't she and Ethan desperate to be together? They thought we stood in their way, that we ruined their happiness. This time, I'll let them have what they want. I'll let them become the pair they dream of. Then I'll rip away their masks, show them just how wrong they were, how shameless they are. And finally, I'll watch them fall into ruin, losing everything." A chill ran through me at his icy words. His resentment was heavy. But after the way we all died last time, how could it not be? Was I not the same? "Then why did you choose to marry me?" I asked quietly. Ryan gripped my chin, his eyes blazing. "Because I like you. When Shangqin Group was in crisis and everyone else avoided me like the plague, you were the only one who anonymously passed me information." I hurried to explain. "That was because I wasn't sure if your company would rise again. It's easy to add flowers to a bouquet, hard to send charcoal in the snow. Shangqin Group had deep foundations, and you're capable. If you turn things around, it would also benefit my husband's company. And besides, what I gave you was nothing more than analysis from public sources. It wasn't difficult." "Say husband." Ryan's voice carried a trace of dissatisfaction. My face flushed crimson. "Husband," I whispered. He rested his chin on my shoulder, wrapping me in his arms. "No matter what your reasons were, you were the only one who firmly believed I could rise again. Whatever your purpose, you helped me." I held all of this in my heart. While Ethan and Olivia whispered in secret and plotted together, you and I often met, discussing strategies, even going together to catch them in the act. Your decisiveness, your sense of strategy, your sharp business instincts. All of it moved me. I remember thinking, if only I had married you instead, how different things might have been. I would have been truly happy, and Shangqin Group would never have fallen so close to ruin. Catching the meaning behind his words, I asked, "Are you saying that Shangqian's near takeover was tied to my sister?" When Olivia's schemes were finally exposed, Ryan sighed. "Yes. It was all caused by that woman." His voice turned cold. Our company had always kept a low profile, but as soon as she married in, she flaunted everything, accepted bribes left and right, greedy and shallow, promising favors to anyone. I warned her several times, but she hated it, picked fights with me, even tried to force me to fulfill those promises she had made. Naturally, I refused. As a result, I offended a whole circle of people, and word spread that I took benefits but never delivered. I frowned slightly. "Wasn't that around the time of the overseas server data breach?" I remember the scandal. It was huge. Ryan nodded. Any company can suffer a data breach. It can be serious, or it can be manageable. That one could have passed quietly, but those people ganged up, shorted us in unison, and stirred regulators into launching an investigation. Suddenly, everything clicked. At the time, I had assumed Ryan had simply made enemies. Otherwise, it never would have escalated like that. But now I knew. The root of it had been Olivia all along. Ryan continued. If not for my father holding firm, I would have been ousted from the board. Even though I kept my seat, I couldn't advance any further. Yet she still insisted it was my incompetence, my mistakes that had brought it all on. She scorned me for being useless, unable to make money. I felt a pang of recognition. I remembered clearly. In my past life, when I returned to my family home, I had overheard Olivia crying to my mother, saying Ryan had no vision, that he opposed every investment, that he was a fool, living off his ancestors' legacy. At the time, I had even begun to doubt whether I had overestimated him. But hearing the truth now, I realized it had been Olivia stabbing him in the back. She was the one who had failed. But she shifted the blame onto Ryan. And when she couldn't live well in the Ryan family, she slunk back home, weeping to my mother while casting greedy eyes toward my husband. The shamelessness was beyond belief. From the bottom of my heart, I pitied Ryan. He went on, his voice taut. Later, when several companies were competing for a government project, Shengqian insisted on staying neutral. But that woman secretly accepted a property from our rivals, even colluded with them in insider trading. I told her to stop. She accused me of blocking her from getting rich. Word got out, and top officials were furious. My father worked tirelessly to smooth it over, and she wasn't done. She acted as an informant for our rivals. At the time, my father was preparing a bid for a confidential project. She actually used our 3-year-old son, sending him into my father's study to secretly photograph the bid documents. No one thought to guard against a child. He succeeded. She passed the information to our opponents, and our project collapsed. The authorities had had enough. They launched an antitrust investigation into Shengqian. With a few old enemies fanning the flames, I lost my position as CEO. I was shaken. How had Olivia managed such treachery? Ryan's gaze was like ice. Ethan also wanted to throw in with those rivals, hoping to win their support. But I knew clearly, backing the wrong side would mean total destruction. Even if they gained power, Ethan's company wasn't strong enough to secure benefits from their inner circle. So I held him back firmly. Later, those rivals were investigated, and Ethan's company survived. I thought he would be grateful. But no, he only complained that I had been too domineering. I sneered bitterly. That wretched man never understood gratitude. Ryan's expression darkened further. After Shengqian fell, the child cried endlessly for his mother. I endured it. But she scorned me at every turn. And then, she betrayed me. The fury in his eyes flared. I reached up, pressing my palm against his chest. It's all in the past now. Ryan drew in a deep breath, then clasped my hand with a faint smile. Yes, it's all in the past now. Maybe heaven couldn't bear to watch and gave us another chance. Susan, I will treat you well. I nodded softly. Husband, I will treat you well too. He suddenly laughed, all the fury and hatred from before vanishing completely, as though the man gritting his teeth moments ago hadn't been him at all. I had always known his mind ran deep, but I hadn't realized he could rein himself in and release so easily. He held me tightly. Susan, you're so precious. Why waste our time discussing such filthy people? We should treasure the moments we have. My heart sped up, my face burning, and I gave a small nod. Not long after our wedding, I went to pay my respects at the Ryan family's old estate. Just as in my past life, Ryan's parents were gracious and refined. They presented me with a luxury home in the city center as a wedding gift. It was something I had never received from the Sue family. Not that they lacked the means, they simply never wanted to give to me. When we returned to our villa, Ryan smiled. I have another gift for you. What kind of gift? I asked in surprise. He clapped his hands and his assistant, Jack, entered with news that truly was a grand gift. Boss, Jack said, our people kept watch at Ethan's place last night. After Olivia walked in, we had the cleaning lady casually mention outside their room how shabby Ethan's engagement banquet was compared to Mr. Ryan's. She also let slip how grand your side had been. Olivia was furious. She smashed things in the lounge. When Ethan walked in, cheerful, she hurled a champagne glass at him. They started fighting. Olivia blamed Ethan for his terrible idea that ruined her reputation, for the lackluster banquet that made people mock her. Ethan scolded her for smashing a glass on their wedding night. Bad luck and disgraceful. He insisted it was only because of the rushed timing that things weren't perfect, that he had already done his best. He said she shouldn't have thrown a tantrum. In the end, without the champagne glasses, they couldn't even drink the ceremonial wine together. By evening, Ethan ended up sleeping in the study. The more I listened, the harder it was to hold back my laughter. Ryan tilted his head. "So, do you like this gift?" Covering my mouth, I chuckled. "I like it. Hearing them suffer makes me happy." Then I teased him. "You really sent people to spy on a couple's quarrel? Aren't you afraid people will call you petty?" He pulled me into his arms with a smirk. "You and I are both petty. Stop pretending otherwise." I burst out laughing. Honestly, I thought Ethan and Olivia's wedding night would be full of passion, a long-awaited reunion of lovers. Who knew it would blow up into a fight instead? I imagined the reality must be very different from what Ethan dreamed. Meanwhile, Ryan and I had spent a perfect night together. Over the next 2 days, he and I talked endlessly, as if making up for years lost. We confessed everything about our past lives. I realized then that I hadn't misjudged him. Ryan was never the useless man Olivia had painted him to be. He once had a brilliant future, and Shengchen Group had always been cautious and steady. It was only after Olivia married in that the company became riddled with holes, giving enemies the leverage they needed to strike and ultimately bringing the family down. Ryan also came to understand that much of Ethan's past success had been thanks to me. Gently brushing my cheek, he said, "So it was you who gave so much. And he never once mentioned your efforts. Truly a heartless man." "I knew your life wasn't easy, but I never realized it was worse than I imagined." I smiled faintly. "Still a little better than yours. At least I wasn't thrown out of the board, mocked, and left with nothing." We shared a quiet smile, and the heaviness between us dissolved. Perhaps it was because we had both suffered failed marriages and endured betrayal, but that only made us cherish this bond all the more. In the company, Ryan protected me openly. Whenever some old-fashioned directors tried to impose rules on me, he immediately stood up in my defense. Ryan always stood in front of me, shielding me. I had once been the CEO's wife for many years, managing countless affairs with ease, and now I slipped back into that role naturally. Everyone in the company was satisfied with me. This time, however, I had something I never touched in my past life. The kind of devotion that wrapped me in warmth. To be cherished like this felt indescribably good. In short, my days were thriving. Meanwhile, news of Ethan and Olivia's farcical marriage reached us quickly. On their wedding night, after their fight, Ethan was the first to back down, though clearly unwilling. I understood that man well. He always thought too highly of himself, and after becoming CEO, his arrogance only grew. Olivia humiliating him in such a way would definitely have stung. But since she was his beloved white moonlight, he swallowed his anger, coaxing her instead, dreaming of a fairy tale romance. Yet the very next day, when Olivia made her first formal visit to her in-laws, things blew up again. Ethan's parents were fond of setting rules, carrying the airs of elders. But Olivia, who was she? The pampered eldest daughter of the Sue family. Spoiled since birth, selfish and domineering. She had always been worshipped and praised. No one had ever dared impose rules on her. With relatives crowding around, talking this and that, and red envelopes handed out too modestly, Olivia immediately felt slighted. She lashed out on the spot. "I am the daughter of the Sue family, and I marry into your household, an ordinary middle-class family. Instead of being grateful, you actually try to step on me?" Her words offended every member of the Chin family present. The irony was, she wasn't wrong, but Ethan loathed anyone looking down on his background or disrespecting his parents. A new bride on her very first visit, throwing a tantrum like that. How was he supposed to face anyone in the future? So, even if Olivia was his white moonlight, in front of everyone, he still rebuked her. "Now that you've married into the Chin family, my elders are your elders. You will show them respect." But Olivia cared only about Ethan, not his family. She already felt she had suffered a great grievance when the engagement banquet hadn't been grand enough. Now she believed the Chin family was bullying her. And for Ethan to scold her in public, she erupted, crying that she wanted to return to her parents' home. The scene became unbearably ugly. Ethan was scolded harshly by his parents and relatives, and with resentment simmering inside him, he went back to coax Olivia. But she refused to yield, pressing him endlessly. He ended up pleasing neither side, more frustrated than ever. Exhausted, he couldn't understand why. He had married the woman he loved most, she had married the man she wanted most. So why was their home in chaos after only 2 days? Wasn't it supposed to be perfect? Wasn't it so good before? According to Jack, Ethan stood several times at his office window, staring at a plum blossom tree outside, mumbling to himself as if recalling something. I knew what he was remembering. When I had been his wife, I had abided by rules, handled his parents with tact, and managed every detail of the company. He hadn't needed to worry about anything. His days had been comfortable and easy. Not like now, steeped in humiliation. Ryan asked sharply, why would he be murmuring at a plum blossom tree? Jack shook his head. I don't know, sir, I frowned. I've always liked plum blossoms, I can't be sure, but I think Ethan stares at that tree because he's reminiscing about when I was there. Not that he missed me, he never liked me, he's just remembering how convenient I was, how I spared him trouble. Can a man be any more disgusting? Ryan's expression darkened instantly. Then we'll cut that plum tree down at the first chance. I blinked, then laughed, teasing. Husband, don't tell me you're jealous again. He didn't deny it. I covered my mouth, chuckling. All right, no more of this pointless jealousy. Tomorrow we have to pay our return visit. Don't let people laugh at us, I reminded softly. Ryan chuckled and squeezed my hand. Don't worry, honey. Soon it was time for our return visit to the Sue family. Honey, look at the gifts I prepared for the visit. Do you think it's enough? Ryan asked, pulling me excitedly into the walk-in closet. He pointed at a pile of luxury brand boxes. When I opened them, I found limited edition jewelry and luxury watches. I shook my head firmly. No. Then we'll add a yacht, Ryan offered smoothly. No need, I quickly stopped him. He said with a slow smile, I'll handle the gifts for the visit. After that, he called in Jack, instructing him to take away all the luxury goods and replace them with simple supermarket gift boxes. Ma'am, this... Jack hesitated. I spoke slowly. I've already told my husband the truth about how my family treated me. I won't let them take advantage of me again. Then I told Ryan about what my mother had said to me before the engagement. The matter of the trust fund. I had a trust fund under my name, left to me by my grandfather. The dividends each year were considerable. Before my engagement, my mother had warned me specifically to keep the documents safe. At the time, I thought it strange. Later, when I had Maya check, I was shocked to discover that at some point, the beneficiary of that fund had been changed to Olivia. My mother hadn't dared let the Gu family know, afraid I'd lose face, so she only whispered it to me. While my fund was secretly transferred away, Jack found that Olivia had suddenly gained several new shops and shares under her name, all from my parents. My father had once publicly said that both Olivia and I would receive a trust fund and a portion of stock as dowries. Not because he loved me, but because, marrying me into the Gu family, he had to keep appearances. But now my fund had been switched. Clearly, right before the engagement, someone had stolen my assets and given them to Olivia. And no one could have done it except my mother. At the time, I thought she had finally relented and stopped making trouble for me before the marriage. I never imagined she was stabbing me in the back. Since this kind of family scandal couldn't be aired out, I had to swallow it in silence. Over time, it was buried and forgotten. But if they could trick me once, then naturally, I had every right to strike back now. When Ryan heard, he was stunned for a long time, unable to recover. I knew your mother was biased, but I didn't think it was this bad. You're her own daughter. How could she? Yes, I said quietly. In my last life, I thought the same. How could she? It wasn't until my death that I finally understood. There really are mothers in this world who have no regard for their own daughters. Ryan's eyes grew dark. I understand what you mean, honey. He gestured to Jack. Print the change records for Susan's trust fund. I'll personally take them to the Sue family. I was startled, Then warmth surged through me. I didn't stop him. When everything was ready, Ryan and I drove to the Sue family's home. Both daughters returning for the visit drew a crowd of relatives, eager to see the excitement and curry favor with the Gu family's new son-in-law. My father was beaming with pride. By the time we arrived, the Sue family villa was already bustling. Unfortunately, Ethan and Olivia's car pulled in at the same time. Good son-in-law. My father didn't even glance at Ethan and Olivia as they got out. Instead, face glowing with delight, he walked straight toward Ryan, chatting warmly with him. Only then did he spare me a glance, warning me to take good care of Ryan from now on. Ryan replied coolly, "Susan is already doing very well. We're husband and wife, one body. If Chairman Sue looks down on her, then you're looking down on me." My father's smile froze, and he quickly changed his attitude toward me. My heart ached with emotion. Marry the wrong man, and a woman must weather storms alone, exhausted and half dead. Marry the right man, and she never has to worry. He'll shield her from the wind and rain. The difference between Ethan and Ryan was like night and day. "Dad," Olivia whined unhappily, but my ever-snobbish father only gave her a perfunctory, "You're back," then turned back with a smile to invite Ryan and me inside. Olivia stomped her foot in anger, while Ethan's eyes grew stormy. As we entered the house, our gifts were carried in as well. Everyone was eager to see what we had each brought. As for Ethan's family, no one cared to look. What they really wanted to know was just how generous the Gu family's return visit would be. Everyone began whispering among themselves, and Olivia grew even angrier. She ordered someone to open her gift boxes. Inside was a limited edition Patek Philippe watch and a rare, discontinued Van Cleef & Arpels necklace. As the butler announced the items, gasps of surprise filled the room. "Ethan's studio must be making huge profits," someone remarked. "Looks like the rumors about going public are true." That makes sense. Otherwise, why would the Sue family marry their eldest daughter into that household? Pleased with the compliments, Olivia had worked hard to put on a show, and the gifts she brought were indeed extravagant. Hearing the praise, she lifted her chin proudly, basking in her moment of glory. Ethan smiled broadly as well, his pride swelling as if those gifts had come from him. I cast a calm glance at the pile. Ethan's studio had never been profitable. He couldn't possibly afford such luxuries. To save face, Olivia had dug into her own private stash, presenting them as return gifts to the Sue family. In her mind, since our mother would secretly make it up to her sooner or later, she wasn't really at a loss. But Ethan, how shameless was he to so easily flaunt his wife's money as his own? After Olivia's return gift display ended, it was my turn. The crowd eagerly speculated that mine would surely outshine hers. My father and mother's eyes gleamed with expectation, but when the gift boxes were opened, everyone was dumbfounded. Inside were nothing more than ordinary supermarket health supplements. Olivia immediately seized the chance to sneer. "Susan, your return gift is far too shabby. Could it be the Gu family looks down on you and didn't even bother to prepare something?" Ethan arched his brow at me, sighing and shaking his head as though my life after marrying Ryan was utterly pitiful. The eyes of those around us flickered between Ryan and me, trying to catch some hidden sign. Was the Shangtian group dissatisfied with this marriage? I remained calm and silent. Ryan said evenly, "Read out the list." The crowd murmured in confusion. "What's there to read? They're just cheap supplements." Still, the butler obeyed. But the items he read out were nothing of the sort. Instead, he announced diamond shares, overseas properties, and various high-value assets. His voice rang out loud and clear. Everyone looked around, bewildered. They saw a pile of inexpensive goods, yet the butler was reading off trusts and investments. It seemed absurd. Faces turned awkward. They didn't dare lash out at Ryan, so instead they scolded me. "Susan, look what you've done. This is outrageous." My mother's face darkened, her voice sharp. "Humph, I knew it. Olivia was the one more suited to be Mrs. Gu. If she had married into the Gu family, we wouldn't have ended up in such embarrassment today." I stayed quiet. Ryan raised his brows and said coldly, "Whatever the Sue family has done, we are simply following suit." "What does that mean?" The relatives buzzed in confusion. Ryan waved his hand, and Jack stepped forward with 2 documents. "This is the dowry list the Sue family gave us for my wife. It includes a trust fund, company shares, and original stock options." His eyes swept meaningfully toward Olivia, whose face had already turned pale. Then he held up the second document. And this is what our people uncovered as the actual property under my wife's name when she married into the Gu family. He handed both lists to the butler. Read them aloud for everyone to hear. As the butler read, people began exchanging startled looks. Slowly, they realized something was wrong. Wait, aren't these the very assets Miss Olivia just flaunted as her own? Someone whispered. Yes, a Patek Philippe might be chalked up to coincidence, and maybe even the Van Cleef and Arpels necklace. But the private villa in the south of the city? The one-of-a-kind painting by Master Jean? There's only one of those in the world. How can these things appear in Susan's dowry list? My mother's face turned chalk white, and Olivia swayed unsteadily as if she might faint. My father finally sensed the truth and turned to glare furiously at my mother. Only then did I speak, my voice calm but firm. Dad, Mom, I know you don't like me. You never wanted to give me a dowry. I had wanted to keep the family's shame hidden, but during the property audit yesterday, the Gu family's team of lawyers was present. There was no way to cover it up. Ryan's voice was icy as he said, "If I hadn't seen this with my own eyes, what would people think in the future when my wife couldn't produce these assets? They'd believe the Gu family had bullied her and swallowed up her property. You're pushing Shengtian Group into a position of being accused of cruelty and injustice." The crowd erupted in shock. At that point, there was no confusion left. Everyone understood what had happened. The Su family had taken the younger daughter's dowry and handed it to the elder daughter instead. But when the list of assets didn't match the actual gifts, they were exposed. To make it worse, Olivia had actually used my dowry to put on a show, passing it off as her return gift to gain face. Being caught red-handed in front of everyone was nothing short of ridiculous. "Good son-in-law, I didn't know," my father stammered, panicked, begging Ryan for forgiveness before rushing to Olivia's side. With a furious crack, he slapped her hard across the face. "Shameless girl, how dare you steal your sister's dowry? Who gave you the courage?" Olivia fell to the ground, stunned. Seeing that my father's fury hadn't burned out and he was about to hit her again, she immediately shouted, "It was Mom who prepared the dowry." That was Olivia. Always selfish, never caring about anyone else. Even though my mother had always protected her, the moment her own interests were threatened, she didn't hesitate to betray her. My father froze for a second, then turned and slapped my mother with equal force. "Wretched woman! Look at the disgrace you've caused." My mother had never imagined that as Mrs. Su, she would be humiliated with a slap in front of so many people. She broke down, wailing. Ryan only shook his head and sighed. "Mrs. Su is blind to right and wrong. Her favoritism runs deep. Everyone here has seen it with their own eyes today. You should reflect on yourself." With that, he clasped my hand and led me away, ignoring my father who chased after us. We left the Su family's house without looking back. The scandal spread quickly through society. The Su family had already become notorious after the fiasco at Olivia's engagement party, and now they were caught in a dowry-swapping scandal. Their reputation plummeted. My mother, in particular, became a laughingstock among the wealthy circles, and my father's company stock price took a hit. He went home and punished my mother, then hastily sent someone to retrieve the documents for my assets from Ethan's company and delivered them to the Gu family. To show remorse, he even forcibly transferred half of Olivia's assets to me as compensation. I had wanted to cut ties and refused to accept anything from them. But Ryan waved his hand decisively. "Take it. This is rightfully yours." So I quietly accepted it. Soon, Jack brought fresh news. When Olivia found out half her assets had been taken, she fainted from rage. The Chin family, too, became the subject of scorn, since they had shamelessly used their daughter-in-law's money as return gifts, only to be exposed on the spot. Their face and reputation were utterly ruined. Ethan became the poster child for a man living off his wife, alienated by his business partners. Tensions between him and Olivia grew heavier. Olivia refused to admit fault. "If I hadn't used my own money to save face for you, would I ever have needed to bring those gifts? I did it for you, and this is how you treat me? Good intentions bring no reward." Ethan snapped. "Save face for me? More like save face for yourself." Our company was never going to measure up to Shengtian. Even if our gifts weren't impressive, no one would have cared. But you couldn't stand the thought of being compared to Susan. You felt wronged for marrying me, so you had to compete and spent your private stash. And now you dare to call her by that nickname, Wanwans? Don't tell me you haven't been thinking of her all along. That was a slip of the tongue, Olivia cried. I don't believe it, Ethan shot back. The two quarreled bitterly and parted unhappily. Exhausted and disheartened, Ethan stood once more by the office window, staring at the plum tree outside. He muttered to himself, why is it like this? Why isn't Olivia the way I imagined? Where did it all go wrong? Susan, tell me, why has your sister become like this? The next day, Jack reported that Olivia had ordered someone to dig up the plum tree in front of Ethan's company building. I was reviewing a project report when I looked up in surprise. Why? Jack exchanged a glance with Ryan and said, because someone told Olivia that plum trees are your favorite. Ethan often stood there staring blankly, lost in thought. I turned my head toward Ryan. His expression remained steady as he said, what are you looking at me for? It wasn't me. I wouldn't stoop to something like that. With that, he walked out of the study. I could only shake my head helplessly and return to my report. When I finally finished my work and stepped outside, I found Ryan in the villa's courtyard, digging a hole with an ice shovel, the soil scattering as he worked. Beside him sat a small plum sapling. My heart warmed instantly. I walked over and said softly, honey? What? He asked, pausing. I pulled out the contract from a big deal I had just signed. This is for you. He quickly dropped the shovel, took the contract from my hands, and looked at it with surprise. This is for me? My cheeks flushed slightly. Thank you for standing up for me. He smiled. Isn't it only right for a husband to stand up for his wife? Not everyone can do it, I whispered, especially Ethan. Meeting his blazing gaze, I suddenly felt shy, turned around quickly, and hurried back inside. Opening the window, I caught sight of Ryan carefully planting the plum tree, as if he were completing something of great importance. My eyes grew hot, and I had to blink back the tears. In less than 2 days, instead of dying down, the gossip about the Sue family only spread more wildly. Around this time, I received an invitation to a top-level tech summit. But the day before my departure, my mother and Olivia suddenly came to the Goo house, demanding to see me. After thinking for a moment, I allowed them in. Susan, this matter started because of you, so you must step in, my mother said sharply. Her true intentions soon became clear. She wanted me to take her and Olivia to the summit. The organizers had not invited them, but she insisted that I had to act close with them in public, introduce Olivia to the tech tycoons and investors, and use my influence to raise her status. That way, they could dispel the rumors of family discord and salvage the Sue family's and Ethan's company's reputation. Her tone was commanding, full of blame, still believing everything was my fault for harming her and Olivia. Olivia glared at me as well, but I stayed silent. Mother pressed on. Susan, no matter what fights we have, to outsiders we are still one family. A woman's maternal family is her true support. If you sever ties with us, your husband's family will never value you. When trouble comes, you'll be left with no one to protect you. You don't want that, do you? I couldn't help but laugh coldly. In my previous life I had believed the same thing, that as the Sue family's daughter, no matter how unfairly they treated me, when real trouble came, they wouldn't abandon me. So I endured their favoritism, their cruelty and their excesses. But the truth was clear. When I truly needed them, they distanced themselves faster than anyone. When Ethan once offended a major investor and everyone thought his company was finished, I rushed to contact the Sue family, begging them to step in. But what I received was only my mother's cold ridicule. A married daughter is like water spilled out. The Sue family won't intervene. Only after Ethan weathered the crisis and his company began to thrive again, did they suddenly recognize me as their daughter once more. Later, when Ethan wanted to divorce me on the grounds that I couldn't have children, I sought my family's support again. Instead of helping, they called me useless trash, blaming me for failing to keep a man's heart, and even considered introducing my cousin to Ethan as his new wife. At that time, isolated and abandoned, I was completely disheartened. If I hadn't held evidence of Ethan's asset transfers, I would have been cast out with nothing. My mother liked to speak of principles. Fine, since she knew these principles so well, why did she make my life unbearable, leaving me no room to breathe? Why did she secretly swap out my trust fund? Was it her daughter who forced her hand? Her face turned red, then pale, and finally, she slammed the table in anger. That's all in the past. Tomorrow you must take us with you. Fine, I smiled. I'll take you both. Their faces immediately lit up with excitement. The next morning, they dressed extravagantly and waited at the gate long before it was time. I brought them along in the car to the summit. When we arrived and stepped out, Olivia rushed over to cling to my arm, pretending we were the closest of sisters. Seeing this, my mother finally let out a relieved breath. As Olivia and I walked forward, we happened to encounter one of the key organizers, Chairman Wang, making his entrance while surrounded by a throng of reporters. Olivia's eyes lit up instantly. She pinched my arm hard and hissed, "Hurry, take me over." The pain made me frown, but I still led her toward him. "This is Mrs. Gu, the new wife of the CEO of Shengtian Group," someone who knew me quickly introduced. Chairman Wang smiled, shook my hand, and greeted me warmly. "Chairman Wang, hello," I replied politely. Olivia, suppressing her excitement, stepped forward to join the conversation. "And this is," she began. I curved my lips into a smile. "This is my elder sister, the one who once stole my dowry. Today my mother insisted I bring her here to meet all of you, to show everyone just how deep the bond between sisters can be." Olivia's face instantly drained of color. My mother's eyes widened in shock. Around us, the reporters began to murmur in low voices, and camera flashes went off wildly. Chairman Wang raised his brows, giving Olivia a long, meaningful glance. "Ah, so this is the famous eldest daughter of the Su family. I've heard much about you." Then, without another word to her, he pulled me aside and began speaking to me warmly as we walked away. Olivia and my mother stood frozen in the hallway, stiff with embarrassment as they endured the whispering stares of those around them. Later, as I stepped out to answer a phone call, Olivia came at me with red-rimmed eyes like a woman possessed. "You bitch," she spat. "How dare you treat me like this? I won't forgive you." I looked at her calmly. "And how exactly will you not forgive me?" She faltered for a moment, then ground her teeth. "Just you wait. In 6 months, Ethan will win the bid for that national AI project. He'll soar to the skies while your Gu family will be dragged into an antitrust investigation. By then, you'll be begging for death but unable to die." With that vicious threat, Olivia finally lost all face and stormed off with my mother. When they got home, she began pressuring Ethan day and night to win that AI project, but Ethan despised being pushed. "You women have no abilities of your own," he snapped. "All you know how to do is pressure men." They quarreled again. Olivia wept bitterly. "Ethan, I gave up everything just to marry you. You must win that project for me, to restore my dignity." She truly believed she had sacrificed everything and deserved to be compensated. To her, his success was the only repayment. One conflict after another piled up until Ethan himself burned with frustration. He wanted to replicate his past life's success in one fell swoop, to regain his pride. He started working overtime at the office, but whenever he faced complex algorithms, he felt as if his head would split open. Olivia flew into rages whenever she saw him struggling, crying and screaming that he didn't care about her. Finally, he burst out in anger. "I told you I'm under a lot of pressure right now. Why can't you be like Susan, helping me find solutions and sharing the burden, instead of just crying and blaming me? Why do you only add to my stress?" His disappointment was deep. For the first time, he realized how invaluable it was to have a supportive wife during hard times. Olivia only cried and threw tantrums, distracting him further, while Susan— if only Susan were here. The words slipped out before he realized it. Both of them froze in shock. Then Olivia exploded, hitting him and screaming hysterically, tearing the house apart with chaos. That night, one of Ethan's partners pulled him aside in the office. "Marry a wife, marry wisely," he sighed. "Choose the wrong woman, and you'll ruin not just yourself but the whole company. Ever since you married Olivia, our company has become a laughingstock. You never have a moment's peace, and your reputation is suffering. Not long ago, your mother tried to ease the tensions by handing the family finances over to Olivia, but she took the money and poured it into high-risk crypto, losing everything. One day she's fighting with your sister, the next with your aunt. She even went online to borrow from loan sharks. If this scandal comes out, we're all finished. Ethan was stunned. So it's true. His partner nodded. We've been hiding it from you because we were afraid you'd lose focus, but now it can't be kept secret any longer. Back then, we thought marrying the eldest daughter of the Sioux family meant you'd have a cultured, reasonable wife, and with the Sioux family's investment, everything would flourish. But now it seems you married a walking disaster. I heard the younger daughter, Susan, has taken over Shangtian's investment department and runs it like clockwork. If only you had married her instead. Ethan lowered his head, utterly dejected. The partner went on. What's done is done. You need to discipline Olivia. Don't let her act recklessly again, or she'll drag down the entire company. Ethan left the office in heavy silence, lost in thought. Could it be that Ryan's loss of power and Shangqing Group nearly collapsing really had something to do with Olivia? He went to confront her. How could it be my fault? Olivia shouted. It was Ryan's incompetence that almost bankrupted them. Ethan studied her face, half believing, half doubting. Olivia pressed on. Why do you keep thinking about your past life? What matters most is winning that AI project now. She was right. Whatever happened in the past was already over. What mattered was this life. Ethan forced himself to be patient. Don't worry. I've participated in this project before. I know the core algorithms and the evaluation standards. Even if I start preparing now, I'll be fine. Olivia's face lit up with joy. Really? Then that means you're guaranteed to be number one. The two of them grew excited again. When I heard this from Jack's report, I only shook my head. Ethan thought winning the bid depended solely on his own abilities. Then I would make sure he learned a lesson about his true limits. That night, when Ryan came home, I told him everything. Honey, both Olivia and Ethan have been reborn. Ethan remembers the project details, and he's banking on winning again. Ryan paused mid-motion, then chuckled coldly. It just so happens that the committee is discussing the selection of the evaluation panel right now. I'll recommend reshuffling the experts. If the panel changes, so will the standards and focus. I smiled with relief. With the criteria rewritten, Ethan would have to compete on equal footing with countless top-tier companies. He was so full of himself, convinced he could succeed on his own. Now we would see if he could secure the project without my help. On Ethan's side, Olivia's mood lifted with his promises. Whenever she saw me, she even flaunted her pride. I stayed calm. Because Ethan thought he was ahead of the game, he no longer worried about the project, while Olivia continued her reckless behavior. He had to clean up after her constantly, even taking on her debts and running around dealing with trivial messes like a servant. People mocked him as a kept man, and gradually even his closest friends distanced themselves. The dream of his pure white moonlight was crumbling. Olivia, once his obsession, was now a burden he despised. He grew more and more irritated with her, even deliberately comparing her to me just to spite her. That drove Olivia into furious rages, and their home was filled with endless fighting. Ethan's parents eventually moved back to their hometown, unwilling to endure the chaos any longer. Ethan felt as though the sky itself was collapsing. He couldn't understand. Hadn't he envisioned a perfect future? If he married his white moonlight, life would be blissful, his career soaring while she accompanied him. He always thought his last life had been miserable. But now he realized his present life was a living hell. One evening, I attended a banquet and happened to see Ethan pacing on the terrace. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up and he rushed toward me. Susan. I spoke coldly. Mr. Chin, please show some respect. If you don't want to be accused of harassment and have security called, then you'd better address me properly, as Mrs. Gu. His lips trembled for a long moment before he finally whispered, Susan, I was wrong. My bodyguards immediately stepped in, blocking him from coming any closer. How dare you harass Mrs. Gu? My bodyguard shouted, stepping forward. Ethan clutched his chest but didn't retreat. He fixed his gaze on me. Miss Susan, I have something to say. I gestured for the bodyguards to step back and keep their distance. Looking at him calmly, I said, Go ahead. Say what you want. He looked at me with desperate intensity. Susan, the truth is, the one I always wanted to marry was you. I let out a short laugh. Oh? And now you regret marrying Olivia? His expression twisted with disgust. I never wanted her. She's selfish, vicious, a crazy woman. The one I've always loved is you, not her. That night at the banquet, when she fell, I had no choice but to save her. That's how I ended up marrying her. I shook my head. Ethan, your shamelessness is unbelievable. Wasn't it always your dream to marry your so-called white moonlight? Didn't you and Olivia go so far as to drive into me and Ryan, nearly killing us, just so you could be together? And now you claim you regret it? His eyes went wide, and he staggered back. You've been reborn too? At this point, Ethan was no longer a threat. Smiling, I replied, if you and Olivia could be reborn, why couldn't I? He stared at me in disbelief. I continued with a cold smile. It was Olivia who leaked commercial secrets and engaged in insider trading, nearly driving Shengqin Group into bankruptcy. Yet she went around blaming Ryan, claiming he was incompetent and she was innocent. You believed her, didn't you? That's why you sided with her. Ethan's body trembled. So, it really was her fault that Shengqin almost went under? You've been married to her long enough, I said sharply. Don't you know what kind of person she is? You thought she was perfect, thought I wasn't good enough, so you dreamed of marrying her. Well, now you've been reborn and got exactly what you wanted. Isn't that perfect for you? Tears welled in his eyes. Susan, I was wrong. Can't we start over? Don't call me that. My face hardened. Ethan, do you really think I ever wanted to marry you? Every day with you made me sick. Let me tell you something else. Before your engagement, I deliberately called you to the Su family estate and had Olivia meet you. I gave you enough time to scheme your little wedding swap. I knew all about your plan. I simply let it play out. And now, I'm married to Ryan, and I'm happier than I've ever been. He's 1,000 times better than you. You're not even worth his little finger. Ethan stumbled back as though struck. You knew everything all along? I smiled faintly. Get out. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there hollow-eyed and broken. As I stepped back into the banquet hall, I noticed Ryan's deputy nearby, lips pressed tightly together. He clearly despised Ethan, but from his expression I could see he was wrestling with doubts. I walked over, touched Ryan's hand, and told him about the rebirths, even mocking Ethan as I spoke. Ryan's lips twitched as if he wanted to smile but forced himself to appear indifferent. I don't care about any of that, he said coolly. I leaned against his chest, smiling. I told him he's not even worth one of your fingers. At that, Ryan finally chuckled, wrapped me in his arms, and deliberately cast a glance toward Ethan's direction. Come on, sweetheart. Let's dance. Don't worry, I won't let you fall. I couldn't help laughing. This man was so petty. But I loved it. I wondered how deeply those words would cut Ethan, remembering how he once schemed to make Olivia fall at that banquet so he could swoop in as her hero. Later, Jack brought word that Ethan and Olivia had separated after returning home. Meanwhile, the bidding for the AI project was drawing near. Suddenly, the original panel of experts was replaced. Most people weren't surprised. It was common for panels to change, but Ethan's face drained of color. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. He had been out drinking with contacts, trying to buy influence, but when the news reached him, his expression shifted in utter shock. Ethan rushed home in a panic. Olivia already knew what had happened and burst into the study in a frenzy. I heard the experts were replaced. Does that mean the evaluation standards will change? Can you still win the bid? Annoyed and restless, Ethan snapped. Stop asking me. I'm already upset enough. What? Just because I asked you a couple of questions, you get upset? Are you still thinking about Susan? I don't want to fight with you. Get out. What did you just say? Did you tell me to get out? Olivia's voice rose, trembling with fury. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm the Su family's eldest daughter. Another fight erupted. Olivia smashed several things in the study before storming out and running back to her parents' home. This time, Ethan didn't go after her. He refused to give up on this one last chance to turn his life around. Desperate, he buried himself in revising the project proposal at the last minute. But his anxiety disorder flared. At critical moments, his head would pound, leaving him unable to concentrate. In the end, all he could do was pray the evaluation standards would remain the same as in his previous life. Still, Olivia returned to the Chin household. She knew this was the crucial moment. If Ethan won the bid, he would rise to power just like before, and she would finally become the exalted chairwoman's wife. The day of the project bidding finally arrived. When the presentations were over, Ethan staggered out of the conference room pale and unsteady. Olivia rushed forward, clutching his hand and shaking it frantically. "Well, were the standards the same as last time? You'll win the bid and rise above everyone, won't you? And I'll be the chairwoman's wife, right?" Ethan, worn down by her pestering, gave a couple of half-hearted grunts before pulling his hand away and striding off. That was enough for Olivia. She beamed with excitement. "I knew it. You're definitely going to win." From then on, Ethan practically lived at the company. Olivia threw tantrums but had no choice but to accept it. On the day the results were announced, she strutted to the venue to watch the live broadcast. Quick, quick, see who won the bid. The place was packed, and she couldn't squeeze in. In a panic, she urged her assistant to check the big screen. "Miss Sue, the winner is Shengtian Group." Olivia froze, unable to believe it. She made her assistant confirm again. "In second place is Titan Tech." Her face turned ashen. "Then who's third?" "Storm Intelligence." Olivia was struck as if by lightning, her body swaying. No, that's impossible. How could this happen?" Clutching Ethan's arm, she screamed, "You were supposed to be first. Why aren't you in the top 3? You should have won. You should have been the one." Her shrill cries drew the attention of every reporter nearby. They all turned to look, some even sneering. Who wins or loses is clear to everyone. Mrs. Chin must be delusional. Ethan quickly covered his face, terrified his identity would be exposed. He had lost, and Olivia simply couldn't accept it. Her grandest dream had always been for Ethan to win the bid, for his company to soar, so she could bask in luxury and respect as the chairwoman's wife, trampling me beneath her feet. But now that dream was shattered. All this time, she had been waiting for Ryan's company to collapse under regulatory investigation. Yet, over the past 6 months, his career had flourished. He had even been promoted to chairman of the business chamber. Because I never accepted bribes and always kept a low profile, Shengtian Group remained steady and strong. The more she wished for me to fail, the better my life became. And now Ethan's bid had failed, destroying her last hope. Only then did she finally realize that after rebirth, many things had changed. He might never realize his dream. When he woke from his collapse, Olivia started making a scene, demanding a divorce. What she didn't realize was that asking a man for a divorce, especially when he was at his lowest, was the greatest humiliation. Ethan was already resentful. Losing the bid had left him depressed enough, and now Olivia hurled sharp, cutting words at him while shouting about leaving. Ethan was arrogant and unstable by nature. Olivia hit him and cursed him with the cruelest words she could muster. At last, his long-suppressed emotions erupted. "I want a divorce. I'll remarry Ryan. He's 1,000 times better than you. You're nothing but useless garbage that will never amount to anything." Olivia thought of all the suffering she had endured and broke down completely. Pointing at Ethan's nose, she cursed bitterly, then grabbed a crystal ornament from the desk and smashed it against him. "I was supposed to be Ryan's wife. It was you. You tricked me with empty promises, stole everything from me, never cherished me, and forced me to suffer. I'm done with you." The blow split Ethan's forehead, blood streaming down as his eyes bulged in rage. "So you loved Ryan too? You're leaving me to marry him?" Olivia screamed hysterically. "If it weren't for your promise to win the bid and make me the chairwoman's wife, do you think I, the eldest daughter of the Sue family, would have ever married you? Look at yourself. Now you've failed. You're a worthless piece of trash dragging me down. Of course I'm leaving." She raised the crystal ornament again and struck him. Ethan snapped. Just like in his past life, in a fit of uncontrollable fury, he grabbed the fruit knife on the table and drove it into Olivia's stomach. Ethan had killed the eldest daughter of the Sue family. The case shocked the entire city. To their mother, Olivia was the apple of her eye. When she heard the news, she fainted on the spot. After waking, she rushed to the police to report the crime. She not only accused Ethan of murder, but also exposed how he had deliberately staged Olivia's fall back then, forcing her into marriage with him. She demanded he be sentenced to death. The police immediately opened an investigation. They tracked down Olivia's personal assistant, who revealed the truth. Everyone learned that Ethan had indeed staged the fall, but it had been prearranged with Olivia. She hadn't wanted to marry Ryan. She had already been involved with Ethan, which was why they planned it. The assistant testified that Olivia had said Shengqian Group would be investigated and collapse, and that Ryan would be ruined. She refused to marry into hardship. She believed Ethan would win the bid and soar to success, so marrying him was the smarter choice. Their mother was devastated by the evidence. She had always thought I was the one who had interfered and stolen the marriage. Never, in her wildest dreams, did she imagine it was Olivia and Ethan who had plotted together to force her into the Chin family. She made a scene at the police station. The Chin family, desperate to save Ethan, quickly revealed everything Olivia had done after marrying in. It was clear he deserved what he got. My God, Miss Sue even borrowed from loan sharks? That's illegal. And on the very day she returned home after her wedding, she caused a massive uproar. She was far too domineering. Piece by piece, the truth spread, and the public mocked the Sue family for their lack of upbringing. After Olivia's death, the Sue family's reputation collapsed, because her character was so terrible, and because witnesses confirmed she had abused and assaulted Ethan that night. He was convicted of intentional assault, leading to death, and sentenced to life imprisonment. But Olivia's disgraceful behavior ruined more than her own name. Their father, unable to control his wife and daughter, saw his company destroyed and its stock price plummet. He and their mother fought bitterly. In the chaos, his mistress took the chance to move in with her illegitimate son and seize control of the company. Their furious father committed their mother to a psychiatric hospital. Though he didn't divorce her, in reality, she had been abandoned. Her days in the hospital were unbearably hard. Out of respect for the fact that she was my biological mother, and to avoid being accused of heartlessness, I occasionally had people send her money and supplies, but that was all I could bring myself to do. I treated what I did as nothing more than repaying the debt of being born and raised. Mother and daughter were tied by fate, but never truly meant to stay together. My father was thoroughly marginalized in the business world and even reprimanded by the Chamber of Commerce. It became impossible for him ever to rise again. In his desperation, he brought his illegitimate son to my door, hoping to use Ryan to find a way back in. But Ryan and I rejected him outright. We would never allow him to latch onto Shengqian Group. My father was furious, nearly to the point of collapse, but powerless. Depressed and miserable, he returned home and soon fell ill, never to recover. Meanwhile, Ryan rose step by step, becoming a figure of immense influence in the business world. I once again stood as the chairman's wife, cherished and respected by everyone. Shengqian Group never faltered. When my father-in-law retired, he handed the company entirely to Ryan, and my honor and status remained unchanged. 3 years into his prison sentence, Ethan sent me a letter. The timing was almost the same as when Shengqian Group had declined in my previous life. But in this life, Shengqian thrived, and Ryan had become an industry leader while Ethan suffered endlessly behind bars. Wan, when you receive this letter, I may no longer be alive. Only now do I realize how terribly wrong I was. It was with you that I could have built a company and taken it public. With your help, Ryan has achieved things he never could have in our past life. Olivia was selfish and malicious, yet I was blinded, mistaking false gems for the real thing. I abandoned you to marry her, and this is the outcome. If time could start over, I would devote myself to loving you and being with you forever. I handed the letter to Ryan. He laughed coldly, then tore it to pieces and fed it into the shredder. Pulling me into his arms and laying me on the bed, he whispered, "Impossible. You will always be my wife. Even if time turned back, you would still be mine." Just as he was about to lean down again, a small figure burst into the room. "Daddy, you're bullying Mommy again." Ryan and I got up awkwardly. This child always seemed to appear at the most inconvenient times. Yet as the little one chattered away, Ryan and I exchanged a smile. Suddenly, everything no longer felt so serious. In this life, we would be happy forever.